So welcome back, everyone. The second part of this video, I'm going to discuss an additional theoretical perspective that sheds light on aspects or phases of Mr. C's life. I'm going to focus on Piaget's formal operation stage of cognitive development. The transition into this stage occurs between the ages of 11 and 16 years old. This is when the use of hypothetical deductive reasoning begins. Also, the ability to use logic and systematically work through problems is developed. In a sense, this new form of abstract thinking is what enhances our ability to produce viable solutions to problems. Piaget talks about schemas, the internal ideas and representations that we hold about the world resulting from our efforts to systematically process and store information to make sense of what happens around us. I felt that this theory was important because of the certain aspects of Mr. C's life. Exposure to domestic violence impacted his intimate relationships and his social relationships as a whole. The experience with his father and how that impacted his integrity and his work ethic. And then the relationships that he had with teachers. He discussed in the interview about a principal in high school and an English teacher in middle school that really helped shape his view of education. And although he never believed that he was the model student, he accomplished some educational feats that were not very common in his day for an African-American male. Piaget talks about assimilation and accommodation as it relates to schemas. Assimilation occurs when we bring new information about something to fit our existing schema. Mr. C enrolled in ROTC, which affirmed his ideas of male identity, through the development of hard work, integrity, and service. The information learned in ROTC fit what he already knew about the male identity, and because of his actions, he also saw reward. Accommodation is a little bit different. That's when we're changing our schemas about something because new information we receive about it does not fit our pre-existing ideas about how it should be. I use the example Mr. C demonstrated. Using this example, learned from his aunt, which influenced intimate relationships throughout life. During his adolescent years, his experience with his mother consisted of heavy alcohol use and violence, but he learned those were not the traits of every woman. He used the love and nurture he experienced with his aunt and identified those characteristics when he decided to choose, an intimate partner later on in life. Lastly, I'm going to discuss the limitations of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. First limitation I'd like to discuss is there's been a consensus among social scientists regarding the transition to adulthood being increasingly prolonged in developed societies. There was research done that took a look at how religion was viewed in the last century versus how it is viewed today, and, how that has impacted the development of individuals and the time that it takes for someone to really find their identity and come into adulthood out of adolescence. The second limitation is social scientists have also argued that the interpretation of Erikson's theory tends to be strictly age-graded. However, many have agreed that the psychosocial stages are present throughout the entire life cycle. It's an evolving process, and an individual could be at any stage at any given time in their life, and so Erikson's theory is kind of in the process of being interpreted in different ways by social scientists for this reason. The last limitation I'll discuss is Erikson's theory can also be limited because there are an array of differences in the way people develop. Therefore, placing individual development in stages based on someone's age can be problematic, especially if practitioners are relying solely on this theory to really understand and help the individuals that they work with. That concludes my presentation. I just want to add a quick note regarding Mr. C. Through all of the challenges, adversity, and dysfunction, you know, that he perceives as his life experience, as you know, especially as a child, as an adolescent. He is the president of a nonprofit organization that I have the pleasure of sitting on the board for, that mentors young men between the ages of 4 and 19 years old. The organization is coming into their 15th season. Mr. C has been happily married for 40 years and has 4 biological children. And within the last 2 years, he has taken on a foster child and recently adopt a young Caucasian child who was brought to him through the Child Protective Services organization. And he is now that kid's legal father at 71 years old. So the accomplishments that this man has had over his life, you know, I highly respect and think the world of him. And it is nice to know he is truly a success story and a real reason to know that what our experiences were as children and as teens and as young adults does not shape who we can become in the future. I hope you enjoyed my presentation, and I hope you have a great day.